I told you we want to go far and wide and look at local international, local business news as well as international business news. What is shaping the world? And what is shaping the world back here in Kenya, the world of business? Well, guess who is joining us in the studio? He's a man that you always see on your screen on a day like this. I don't need to introduce him. He's become one of our own, actually, helping us to thrash out various issues from economy, finances, and as well as international issues, shaping the world. I'm talking about Ken Geshinga. He is the Chief Economist at Mentoria. I think we need to change your title. Can we call you the Chief News Anchor at BizCheck? We'll discuss that. Thank you very much,
good morning,
for joining us.
Yes.
Next to Ken, we have Vinay Subramaya.
That's right.
He's the business, or he's the director at Technobrain, which is a business processing and outsourcing. It is the biggest in the country. It has been around now for 10 years?
22 years.
Oh, 22 years. How did I get that wrong? And of course, he'll be helping us to understand. So they understand the market pretty well because they have been around for 22 years. And our focus is on business processing and outsourcing. And if you like it, it's also called the offshoring business. It was an ambitious project to create about 10,000 jobs in this sector in the year 2010. However, the project never materialized. What went wrong? I told you we have Vinay Subramaya. He's the director of BPO at Technobrain. He's joining us here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks.
And of course, we have our in-house resident analyst, Ken Geshinga, Mentoria Consulting Chief Economist. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. First of all, I want to hear from you, Vinay. You have been in this industry for 22 years. So you came even before the government woke up and said, hey, look here, we have opportunities here we can exploit to create money and, of course, to create employment as well. What has been your experience?
I mean, it's a great vision, great idea, because when you actually look into the whole context in the perspective, there is a lot of population who are millennials, youth, and there is quite a lot of opportunity with regards to the graduates looking for employability, and also there is an element of what is called as a social responsibility, which is something picking up in a greater way in the buyer industry, if I have to put it that way. In the US or in the Europe, to attract marginalized or underprivileged background people to give an opportunity to work in the mainstream services like business process outsourcing. So with all these things put together, there is a huge opportunity for that. And I think we are now in a right time because if you look into the growth of India or Philippines in terms of business process outsourcing, that has been a trend which started maybe 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it has grown through the value scale. And now they are more focused on knowledge process outsourcing or even a mix of digital services with outsourcing requirements. And the whole things have changed to become business process management rather becoming a business process outsourcing, which was more or less synonymous to the contact centers or the call centers. So with all those things, the value chain growing there, the buyers are getting the heat of spending more. It is no more a cost viable engagement for them. And also with some of the governments putting more prominence on creating employability within their own countries and stuff like that, it is really becoming a challenge for them to resist that. And that's where now Kenya has got a very good opportunity to encash on that. And I was also mentioning with him that Philippines is also going through a lot of natural calamities. Earlier it used to be 1 or 2 storms in a year, and now it is going as much as 6 or 7 storms in a year. So the buyers who have put their business to be supported from Philippines, they are in a moment where they want to find another provider, another country. And with all these things and with the advantages that Kenya has got, I think we are in the right time, and as any concept or any idea, it takes its own time.
Very good. Vinay, I'll be coming back to you because you're saying that this is the right time, for Kenya, and you're saying that we have a lot that is going for us. I'll be coming back to you, to try and find out what exactly or what is the selling point for Kenya? But I want to hear from you, Ken Gishinga. Earlier on, we were chatting with you, and back then, I think it was in 2009 or 2010, we even had the Kenyan delegation, going all the way to Microsoft headquarters in Seattle, Washington, to try and do some benchmarking mission. They came, the report was done on how Kenya had the opportunity and the platform, to create about 10,000 jobs in this sector in 10 years. However, here we are still stuck with about 2,800 jobs. What went wrong?
I remember that meeting in Seattle very well. I was working at Microsoft at that time, and I remember meeting the Kenyan delegation, and the idea was Kenya was strategically placed because the English in Kenya is good. There's political and economic stability. However, this was a few months before the post-election violence. And I remember in 2007, early 2008, some of the big call centers in Kenya that had already secured top contracts with American clients, they could not service these clients because the employees could not show up to their offices.
A good example was KenCall.
Correct. So we saw it was an anticlimax moment for a lot of them. And I think after that, I think it's been almost like a setback for the industry. But I think the time is right. Now it's almost a decade later. I think internet connectivity right now is as good as it is in the States. Obviously, the human capital is exceptional, and the political stability is there. And the costs in India and China are rising. So people are asking, there's something in strategy called the China plus one strategy, or the India plus one strategy. What will replace these big economies when their costs come up? And countries like Kenya are starting to feature. So I think if you have the right policies in place, absolutely we can take advantage, because we have 800,000 young people joining the labor force every year. They need jobs, and this is one way we can create jobs.
Very well. Tell me things, and I'll be coming back to Vinay shortly, but I want to hear from you. I mean, here we are. I mean, we had the opportunity, we squandered it. Of course, as we say, nature abhors vacuum. At some point, Kenya was the third biggest, BPO market in Africa, after Nigeria, South Africa, and then we had Kenya. But Mauritius has come out, quite strongly. Of course, they don't have the English that we have. That's our bragging right there. The question is can we turn tables? Aren't we too late for the party?
I don't think so. I think the benefits that countries like India have is, even if there's a political issues happening in one state, they can always shift operations to another part. And that's not been the same for Kenya. But what players such as Technobrain are doing is they have a regional focus, for example. So I think what we need to do is take advantage of our East African community, because maybe we don't have the economies of scale as Kenya alone. But if you can play as Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, I think our collective stability as a region, our collective growth rate, I think that can make an investor in Washington, an investor at Microsoft say, hey, I think that region has changed, and I think we want to engage them one more time. And I think that is sort of like BPO 2.0 that's happening right now.
I want to come back to Vinay. I mean, for 22 years, you have been in this market, but I want to hear from you, what do we need to do right to get it right?
Some of the things that we definitely need to focus is in terms of how we manage the people, because when you look into some of these buyers, their corporate social responsibility or their ethics towards handling the human resource while delivering these jobs, they take it more prominently than what you call it as a sweatshop, which is what some BPOs do, because you're just racing against providing cost as a benefit. But when you bring in a lot of value propositions on the table, whether it is through new innovative ideas, whether you want to create something called as a rural BPO or a tier 2 BPO, where you're actually doing a reverse immigration of people not coming and congesting in Nairobi, and then probably developing certain centers outside Nairobi. So these are all some of the innovative ideas that can really strike the buyers, and if it is aligning with their corporate social responsibility or business social responsibility, that really makes it a great value add for us to attract them. And like he was mentioning, the connectivity plays a very prominent role, the kind of resources. These are all the things that comes in as an advantage.
Very well. Well, in case you're joining us, we are talking about the business processing and management. It used to be called the BPO. but times are changing. In studio, we have Vinay Subbaramaya. Vinay, what is your Twitter handle?
Vinay Subbaram, at Vinay Subbaram.
How do you spell that?
VINAY SUBBARAM.
Well, I'll not attempt to do that. He has done it. Kenny Gishinga, you're always here. Remind us your Twitter handle.
At K Gishinga.
At K Gishinga. Is that simple? And Ed O'Brien, we would want to hear your views on our discussion today. And of course, our opinion poll question for the day is, what do you think should be done to jumpstart the BPO sector? What do you think needs to be done to jumpstart the BPO sector here in Kenya? Send us your thoughts, your views, and of course, you might be the lucky one for your tweet or even SMS to be read right here on Kenya. And if you look on your screen, our SMS line is also there. We want to hear from you. Let's get back to you, Vinay. One of the things that was going for Kenya was low remuneration rates. What would you call that? The cost of labor was not as high, as other countries. But because of time has changed, of course, inflation-wise as well. And so we have also seen the government, over the last 10 years, it has moved on, to increase the minimum wage. And so we cannot claim that we are relatively priced, can we?
We can still claim, because one of the things that Kenya has taken is it has taken certain leapfrog in adoption of technologies. So outsourcing is not just about human capital anymore. So it is how you actually increase your productivity, how you actually reduce the time to market or time to response. That is what it makes a lot of difference. And that's where some of the adoption like robotic process automation or adoption of artificial intelligence, this digital spectrum is giving that edge. Because if you are talking of any large organization handling their outsource requirements, and you're telling that for this one I would have required maybe 200 people to handle these things, you might now go back and tell that, okay, I can still handle, but I will only consume 100 people for this, and remaining I'll bring in the digital advantage. So, and again, this is not a threat to the employability, because if you look into the history, whenever there is the automation has taken its place, never there has been a reduction in employment. There has been a demand of more work, more opportunities, more analysis. So this is where we are strategically placed now. And it's not that we have to rest it upon certain entities or certain committees or certain delegations to go and buy for this idea. It has to be every aspect of business engagement, whether it is an individual, whether it is an organization like Technobrain or any other organization. You have to keep talking about this, advocating about this, and then when 10 people start talking about it, it by itself, it will become an appeal.
Ken, tell me this. I mean, look at India, for example, employing about 2.3 million people, actually about 2.5 million people, and raking in about 14 trillion Kenya shillings, from the industry. What lessons do you think we could learn from India and apply them here?
I think India, first of all, the human capital, I think it's very high. They have top universities, the India Institute of Technology and such. Obviously, the population size, they have a demographic dividend that is really playing for the Indian subcontinent. And the cost of labor is not very high. It has been rising in China too. There's something called the Lewis turning point in economics, when rural to urban migration gets to a maximum limit and you can't draw as much cheap talent as you used. And I think that's what's happening in China and in India. So I think if you look at that, the human capital, Kenya has it. If you look at the stability, Kenya has it. And
really?
But maybe we don't have the size. So for me, things such as the African Continental Free Trade that can help Kenya play on a larger regional or continental platform, that could be our game changer, because people want to engage Kenya, but they say Kenya is a 50 million person economy. How much true labor can we get compared? We can't really compare it with India and China, which are subcontinents, if you like. So I think part of Kenya's strategy of playing into the East African community, the Africa Continental Free Trade, I think that might be what might unlock the opportunity for this part of the world. Yeah.
What about China? I mean, China is also emerging as a major player in this industry. can we really compete with these two giants? Or how do we fit in there, bearing in mind that we are a significantly very small player, compared to them? Aren't we likely to be crushed in the game?
See, we just need to identify our niche delivery and the niche model. See, just like what I was mentioning, impact sourcing is something what every organization is looking for, because they have a business social responsibility. And if you look into the geography of Kenya, per se, what is the percentage of graduates you might find, and what is the kind of jobs that you really want to support? I mean, are we ready for the knowledge process outsourcing? We might not be. But for the business process outsourcing, can we bring in the advantage of mixing it with what is called as a social responsibility or the impact sourcing, providing an opportunity for underprivileged or marginalized background to come and get trained and deliver those jobs? Because you are now giving a cost competitiveness, you're giving employment for somebody who might have neglected in the mainstream, and their commitment towards delivering those jobs. These are all the key niche which I can mention here, which can definitely attract and keep us distinct from whether it is the competition of China, India, or Philippines, or even for that matter, Poland.
And tell me this, I mean, you're talking about Philippines, and we know that Philippines is also a very big player in this sector. And you are talking about what is not going for them, and you're talking about natural calamities. But still they have a huge lead, in this front compared to Kenya. What lessons do you think we can draw from Philippines? Because despite the fact that they have a lot of natural issues, be it typhoons and so much, they still attract a lot of business.
It's probably the basement they have put in attracting large companies and setting up some of these policies and principles, right? And also adopting it and implementing it and making sure that it is followed. Because I was just interacting with one of our prospective customer from the US, and he was in our office and he was telling that if you don't really tell me this is Kenya, I would say this is Switzerland.
Switzerland?
Switzerland or Sweden.
Why?
Yeah, because see, the infrastructure is good. You don't see those hanging cables outside the road. The people are more friendly. So these are all the advantages, which is always there. So those things, when you actually follow those principles and process, no matter whether you are in India, China, or any other country, if your delivery standards are up to the mark, you can still attract business.
What do you think should be done to revive the BPO sector here in Kenya? I told you we had in the good company of Vinay Subramaya. He's the director of BPO at Technobrain. Our resident in-house analyst is none other than Ken Gishinga. We are discussing what killed the BPO dream here in Kenya and what we need to do to revive this dream. And the question is, are we too late in the game? Very well. Vinay, before we end for the break, you're giving us some very interesting statistics, that you carried out. And you're telling us that for every job created in the BPO sector, it goes to support 7 members of the family.
Yeah,
how true is this?
We did a survey to understand within our own employees and the employees who left us, like how did it really help? Because if you look into the history of BPO sector, it has been taken as a stopgap employment for many of those young graduates who just get graduated and they don't know where to go, where they will land in with a good job. So they just try their hand in BPO sector. So when you actually employ someone, even through marginalized engagements, what we do, what we call as impact sourcing, it actually helps 7 other lives within the family, be it in terms of access to good food, better medical facility, better education. So this is what we got the feedback when we did the survey. And by looking into it, what we started doing is we kept on doing the survey every often with whoever is the employment with us or within the sector. And this is a clear growth of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because somebody whom you give an opportunity, first they will try to fulfill the basic needs, and now they are planning to build a small house in their upcountry place so that they can also support their family, and they get access to the financial supports from the market, whether it is a mobile lending platform or a bank.
Let's get back to you, Ken, because I'll be coming back to you shortly. Vinay, tell me this, where do you see the disconnection here? Is it lack of clear policies or lack of a drive? towards the growth of BPO from the government end?
I think the policies are very clear, especially during the time of Dr. Bitange Ndemo. I think there was a lot of policy work that happened during that period, and that's where you saw that boom coming up. I think the follow-up has been possibly the weakest point in terms of we don't hear as much of BPO as we used to about a decade ago. So I think it just goes back to, as many of the policies we discuss here, the follow-up part. I think sometimes these things need to be anchored in the things like Vision 2030 or the Big Four for them to
under the medium-term plan,
right,
for 2010, 2013, I can't remember very well. It was one of the anchor drivers of economic growth and job creation. So it was well defined in that critical document. But probably maybe there was a lack of follow-through, or what do you think?
Indeed, even in the budget for this year, I remember the CS Rotich talked about the Ajira program, which would hire young people who would be able to get jobs within the outsourced space. But you didn't hear the language of BPO coming up very clearly in that sense. But essentially, that's what you were saying, that young people can be organized by the ICT ministry to take advantage of these roles. So I think it's just more of a matter of follow-up and taking advantage of the new conditions that Kenya is operating in. I don't think there's a single bullet that is out there. I think it's just a matter of follow-up. Yeah.
It's a question of follow-up. Vinay, tell me this. Where should we go from here? Because there are endless opportunities out there. We are struggling here with the issues of job and income. What should be the way forward?
I mean, one of the things that you asked as a question, whether it died, I don't say it died, the concept of BPO. I think it went to hibernation. So it is now just a matter of waking it up. And the thing is, it cannot be just rested upon a government mechanism or a policy mechanism. It has to be individuals as well. The companies who are in this space should reach out to those potential buyers, bring them here, because showcasing Kenya or showcasing a company or a PPT is very different from bringing them here, making them see what is there, what is available, and then probably by itself it will convince that this is definitely a destination. So this, what I can just summarize is, take the initiative on yourself. If you really want to be a player, if you really want to be a provider, and you want to be seen outside the world, that Africa is ready for handling world needs, I think go for it.
In 30 seconds, if you were given the mandate to drive the BPO agenda in Kenya, what would you do first?
I'll first approach all the Kenyan diaspora, whether it is in Europe or US, telling that, okay, you might be in any spectrum of your business or your employment. Can you outsource something to Kenya, where the community here can be delivering those jobs for you, wherein you get an advantage? So that is what I'll first probably do, and thereafterwards taking delegations, showcasing them is another part. But bring them here, bring those people to see what is there for them to get out of this country is what I'll do.
Gishinga, as we wind up, you remind me of a discussion I had with the former PS for information, that is Dr. Bitange Ndemo, and I asked him, I mean, why did we fail even with Konza, which was supposed to be an anchor driver of BPO in Kenya? And he said, one of the biggest challenges we have in this country is procurement.
Wow, that's an interesting angle. But even before I talk about that, let me build up on what Vinay said about Kenya. I think far too often we talk about, when you're marketing Kenya, we talk about safaris, we talk about coffee, we talk about tea. We don't talk about human capital as an asset. And I think that's the problem. And back to your question, things like Konza, all these things depend on human capital. They can't thrive without human capital. And I think that's the main challenge. Human capital is a competitive advantage in Kenya, but I don't think our national economic policy identifies it. And that's why you find these things happen sort of on the periphery. They're not part of it. I think moving forward, we should ask ourselves, what's our competitive advantage? And it's human capital. So if it's human capital, obviously things like BPO should be at the heart of our strategy. But until we move away from, showcase Masai Mara, showcase our coffee, showcase our tea, we'll never really get to that, because we need to be a knowledge economy. And for you to have a vibrant knowledge economy, the people have to be at the heart, at the central part of your strategy, and we are not yet there yet.
Vinay and Gishinga, we have to wind up, but I want to hear from you. Is the BPO dream dead?
No, hibernated.
It is not dead.
It's not dead.
It's hibernated.
It hibernated.
I like that.
It's waking up.
It is waking up
Yes,
now.
yes.
Who is going to drive this a rise?
Like I said, I mean, it has to be every industry which is part of it. And yes, there could be government mechanism which can also support. Probably a big delegation of BPO players from the continent could go whenever there is a state visit and then attract those people. And also there needs to be a sector tour for those delegates coming and visiting Kenya, so that they can see, they can feel what is being done here and how they can actually leverage on that.
It has to be a concerted effort of everyone.
Exactly.
Ken, if you are a policymaker, what would you do to drive this agenda?
I would say right now the big philosophy in the world is about the future of work. How is work becoming more efficient as we move towards the fourth industrial revolution?
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are choosing to outsource to become more efficient. So countries like Kenya should be able to be ready to take up these jobs that are being outsourced from the West. So I think it's to take advantage of the move towards efficiency and ask ourselves, what are the barriers? You know, are there immigration barriers? Are there technological barriers? Are there psychological barriers? And let's remove as many barriers as possible, because this can be a multi-billion-dollar economy that creates wealth for this country.
Very good. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your insight.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
And it is my hope and desire, and I pray that the policymakers are listening and they are watching. And let's see what happens in the next couple of months.
Great.
Thank you so very much indeed for passing by. Vinay,
Thank you.
Of course, Ken, we are still with you. Okay. Well, you're watching BizCheck. As I said, we are live and we are on air. We're coming to you live from Broadcasting House. And I said, my name is O'Brien Kimani.